Hey guys, just a quick note before we begin that the show may contain spoilers and adult language, but that's just because we know how to have a good time. Stick around, you'll be glad you did.
You are here for me to enlighten you.
You ever act like this again, you're barred for life.
It's just vile and base.
It's kind of embarrassing.
If you know your lines, then you can forget them.
Oh, I get it. It's very clever.
Hello, peoples, and welcome to Esoterica Cinema, the podcast where we take films from the cinematic multiverse and discuss the hell out of them. My name is Jason Peters, and with me today is the man who once seduced Catherine O'Hara at a water park wearing nothing but a neon pink mankini, Mr. Ryan Siebold.
What's up, Jason? I wasn't home alone that night. Oh.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on, buddy?
Not much. I mean, I've seen you in that outfit, by the way. It is a sexy outfit. Just mwah, fantastic.
Oof.
Does you justice, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate you. I was just doing my best Sean Connery Zardoz impression. It came out of the Connery line.
She always struck me as someone who'd be a good time. Can you confirm or deny that?
I can neither confirm or deny that. Can't give up my secrets.
You're a gentleman, sir.
I keep all my
You're a
secrets
gentleman.
in my mankini bandoliers that were given to me in Connery.
Well, the
Red.
reputation, legend has it she came away satisfied. So well done, sir. Well done. We've actually got a movie to talk about here today, buddy. Why don't you hit our audience up with a description?
This is Zardoz, as previously referenced in a terrible way, from 1974, directed by John Boorman. This is his follow-up to Deliverance. In the future, Earth is ruled by Eternals, an advanced and secret sect of beings who reign over a savage group called Brutals. The Eternals have created a god named Zardoz to intimidate the Brutals, making them believe that killing is their natural state. However, Zed, played by Sean Connery, a brutal warrior, challenges that assumption when he enters the Zardoz monument and is captured by an Eternal. There, he learns the truth about the Eternals and the false god that rules society. Little statement on religion, on politics, on power, the ruling class, in the most ape-shit crazy way you could imagine. This movie dares to ask the question, what if L. Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz had 1,000% more titties? We'll see. Let's take a look. Jason, what did you think about this film?
I have thoughts, Ryan. I have thoughts, and we're going to talk about those thoughts right after we listen to this trailer for Zardoz.
Zardoz speaks to you, his chosen ones. The gun is good. Go forth and kill.
Who came here in the stone head?
I don't know.
It is the only path and passage into the vortex. You will show me how you come to be here. Tell me everything.
My name is Zed. For Zardoz, I am an exterminator. Caution, you are approaching the
Look into the ring.
a woman in his name, Zardoz.
Okay, now Ryan, here's the thing that we can all acknowledge, okay, is regardless of whether you love or hate this film, or just neutral on it, it's like the most 70s film that I've seen in so long, man. Just everything just pours out of its body in this very sort of surreal hippy-dippy way. There's a lot of like acid trip sort of visual imagery and soundscapes, and like, it's just kind of, it's a hallucinogenic experience for people who have never done those before, or maybe for people who have as well, right? Who's to say? Either way, it's a batshit crazy film. That being said, to answer your question, Ryan, and I was really surprised because I love me some batshit crazy films, and I especially love, surreal sort of films that play in this kind of space. Didn't love it, man. I really didn't, and I think a large part of it is there's a lot. It's not off the rails in a good way. It's off the rails in terms of like halfway through that movie, if not sooner, it doesn't know what the hell it wants to be. It doesn't know what it's trying to say. And it just became really unfocused. And after a while, it just became, let's just keep throwing weird shit against the wall and hope some of it eventually sticks. And so it was one of those films where it was sort of like lessening returns the more it went on. At first I was all about it. You got the floating head thing and crazy speeches and, the weird Zardoz guy with the pencil mustache and all that crap, right? And so it's like, okay, dude, like, yeah, I'm down for an experience like this. And then, like I said, halfway through, I was just like, this movie doesn't know what the hell it wants to be. Did you feel otherwise?
This movie to me felt like a rated R version of something Sid and Marty Krofft might have made, like H.R. Puffin stuff or Land of the Lost, like one of those quintessential 1970s kids shows. But again, very edgy and rated R. It also felt very DIY and low budget, which I was very surprised knowing. I knew going into this was John Boorman's follow-up to Deliverance, which he was nominated for a ton of awards for. I think he did win a couple, not any Oscars, but a few. But he got a lot of attention. I mean, we all know the theme from Deliverance, Squeal Like a Pig, Burt Reynolds, the whole bit, Ned Beatty. So this being his follow-up, and then Sean Connery, of course, was coming off of James Bond. And in doing some research, I found out basically he was having a rough go being typecast as Bond. Nobody really wanted to hire him. So this was kind of his way to his like breakout. Also, I was finding out in some of my research that Sean Connery is both the best and most amazing human being on the planet, but also quite a bit of a chauvinist and womanizer as well. There's a little bit of a give and take on Connery, I guess, as you start to peel back the layers of that onion. But overall, I heard he's a delight to work with. He just wants to bang everything that moves. He's kind of a living, breathing James Bond. Like he's all about it. So, and this movie let him, kind of showcase some of those talents. Pelvic thrusts and everything. Yeah, it was all, this movie was horny. Basically asking the question, if you live forever and there's no need to procreate, would you still get aroused? Would you still be turned on? Was there any need for sex? And that's kind of my takeaway from this whole film. Pair that with what I was saying earlier, kind of challenging authority and the powers that be, the ruling class versus the working class and so forth. So I don't know. I think this is. I feel two things about this movie. One, this movie is a hunk of junk movie. This is a piece of shit. But two, I like this movie. It's just so nuts. It's so nuts. There's nothing else on screen that I've seen. Starting from, and you started to talk about this, we'll get into it. This movie opens with a floating head and some haunting ass music. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little frightened by this opening. I can't even tell you why. It affected me in a primal way where the head starts way, way off in the distance and he introduces himself as this god and he starts to float. This dismembered floating head gets closer and closer to screen as it's like going around Basically, it goes around the screen like the DVD logo that we all used to wait to hit the corner, or like a game of Pong. It's just like bouncing from edge to edge on this screen and getting closer and closer to your face. And as it gets closer, you see that he's dressed like some kind of Egyptian ruler, albeit he's the most Caucasian person you have ever seen. He looked very much like Eric Idle from Monty Python to me. And he's got a pencil mustache and beard drawn on his face with like a Sharpie, like Donald Trump's predicting a hurricane Sharpie. Like, that's the best way. I've got nothing. And, oh, by the way, he comes back later. We find out more about this gentleman, who he is, what he's up to, why he's on the screen, and he's still got the mustache and beard. So, I don't know, man. That's why I just have to laugh at this film and realize it's ridiculous. I love it for being ridiculous. It's one of those things that you put on and say, wait till you get a load of this. I hope you're ready. And so everyone listening out there, all three of you, I hope you're ready.
Yeah, man, it lets you know up front that it's batshit crazy. And so, you know, and that whole sort of scene, he's talking about how, like, this is something that hasn't happened yet, but it's going to, but it might, but then again, it might not. It all depends how it goes. Kind of just, I guess, sort of embracing its fairy tale nature to a degree, but it's like some weird tripped out, how would you dystopian sort of, I don't know. So let's get into the movie here. The movie takes place in the year 2293, which, by the way, apparently fabric is in short supply because all of these people wear these red mankinis to go with these stone masks, by the way. And there's a bunch of these people, they're on this hillside with this foggy backdrop, and basically this floating stone head descends from the sky. And the throng of people flock to it, and it addresses them. And this is probably the most famous visual and most famous scene from the movie. I do have a clip to remind people, or to tell people who haven't seen the movie, give you a little taste of the film. This is the opening from Zardoz, floating stone head addressing the people.
Zardoz speaks to you, his chosen ones. You have been raised up from brutality to kill the brutals who multiply and are legion. To this end, Zardoz, your god, gave you the gift of the gun. The gun is good. The gun is good. The penis is evil. The penis shoots seeds and makes new life to poison the earth with a plague of men, as once it was. But the gun shoots death and purifies the earth of the filth of brutals. Go forth and kill. Zardoz has spoken.
And so, Ryan, of course, right after that is where it just vomits out a bunch of guns, right?
Yes.
Just all over the hillside.
And lets you know the penis is evil. It shoots
Penis
seeds.
is evil, dude.
It shoots seeds.
Like we just heard.
Yep. So all you dick farmers out there with your dick seeds, holster your guns, because this ain't the movie for you. This is...
Your time's up, guys. That's what we're saying. Your time is up.
The penis is evil.
In 2293. However, the mankini industry thriving in 2293.
Yes. Yeah, especially with connecting bandoliers.
So all those European clothing manufacturers got a head start.
By the way, looks painful to ride horseback in a mankini. That was my takeaway. They're riding horses a la Planet of the Apes, kind of rounding up troops of or clans, of rival bandits, I guess, or people. Basically, we find out later. I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. We find out later they're rounding up people that want to have sex and procreate. They were told the penis is evil. It shoots seeds, as we talked about. So now you have these groups of renegades or bandits that are going around and rounding up anyone that wants to break that rule and, for lack of a better term, fuck. So you want to procreate, you want to make some kids. That ain't happening, so saith the floating head of guns. And as they're riding around on horseback, rounding these folks up with nets and shooting them and whatnot with the guns that were given by the head, we see, it just looked really painful to do that in a mankini and bandoliers. Not good.
And all this we learned later, earlier, like right before the credit sequence. So that whole thing happens when all of the people are gathering their guns. Sean Connery takes out his Smith & Wesson handgun or whatever, points it at the camera, shoots, bang, title appears for Zardoz, the film. He wakes up after the credit sequence and he's inside this floating head of Zardoz. And it's floating through the air. We can see out of the mouth that just vomited up all those guns. And from there too, Ryan, we also get a taste of the set design, which was really pretty interesting. A number of different sort of flavors throughout. What did you think of the set design overall for some of the different sequences?
So this is what took me to Sid and Marty Krofft. It felt very Land of the Lost, very H.R. Puffin stuff. It was, they go into that mirror room eventually we'll get to. There's a lot of crystals and stuff. You're right. It was very, very 1970s, low budget, but in almost like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of way. Also, they do something very strange to the lens of the camera. And I read online, basically the DP added a filter, overexposed a little bit, and blew in a bunch of fog. He was really trying to make it feel almost like a painting, a classic painting or something kind of vintage, very dreamy. A lot of the footage I heard was unusable, and the studio decreed that none of that style of filmmaking will ever be done again because they had to go through so many reshoots and they wasted so much film. So
wow.
The overall look of the film, that dreamy kind of weird ethereal look, was very intentional, and yet don't try this at home, kids, because the studio was pissed.
Well, and I get that too, because I think it's one of those things where, whatever your intentions were, it just kind of came out looking muddled. And, I think that especially when, you're already shooting in such heavy fog, I don't really know that you need to obscure your focus that much after that. It's already really thick fog. We don't need to make it any more difficult to see. And I also think that more so than just sort of giving us a sort of muddled palette, so to speak, the atmosphere is really set largely by the sound design as well. So we've got a lot of really interesting kind of, chimes and clinks and glass, and that sort of juxtaposed with these sort of low, unsettling synth tones and, some of just the weird Pink Floyd acid trip sound effects that kind of, go stereoscopically from one side to the other. I think all that really serves to set the environment more so than just because, at times it kind of looks like they just sort of it's like there's a piece of saran wrap covering the lens, It doesn't necessarily make it look...
Yeah. Or some Vaseline or something. Those classic techniques
exactly.
to get that dream look.
Yeah,
so here's a little nugget I'm going to drop on you. You may already know this. This may be something you were going to hold on to till later. I apologize if I'm stealing any thunder, but we could discuss it. But right now is when we need to talk about this. This was shot by Jeffrey Unsworth, who was Stanley Kubrick's DP on 2001: A Space Odyssey. He also went on to go shoot Superman, the original, and Cabaret. This guy's got a line of credits. So this is somebody that did this. This isn't just a bunch of dudes that you've never heard of that branched off. I will say 2001: A Space Odyssey, I believe that was his last movie he did with Kubrick. Kubrick went on to go work with John Alcott on movies like Barry Lyndon and stuff moving in to the 80s and 70s past 2001. So maybe Kubrick had enough of that shit too. I also know he liked to be involved with camera and stuff like that too. So, maybe he wasn't looking for an actual director of photography, but more of a camera op to reference, and he could still be in control. He seemed like a pretty in control dude, that Kubrick. But yeah, I just thought it was worth mentioning that the DP from 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is heralded as some of the greatest cinematography, at least for its time, if not of all time, the way that the techniques and tricks they used. I thought that was worth mentioning. That guy shot this thing.
Yeah, no, that's crazy, man. I didn't know that, so don't worry about stealing any sort of thunder or anything like that. You're always, much more educated when it comes to the DPs and cinematographers and camera techniques and things like that than I am anyway, so no surprises there. But I really wouldn't be surprised if this project, the film as a whole, was just the product of a massive amount of drugs, right? Like, whether it was hallucinogens or blow or whatever, I feel like it was just one of these things where, dude, they would they would just, do a bunch of rails and be like, yeah, man, it's going to be this. And then we're going to, throw this like hippie cult thing out there. And then the cinematographer's like, yeah, man. And then I'm going to do this like crazy sort of like Vaseline covered lens thing. And it was just one of those things where like nobody was around to tell them no. And so everything just kind of just didn't fit together, I guess you could sort of say.
So right after this, right before this, we mentioned John Boorman made Deliverance and got some credibility and this and that. Went to Ireland and he was trying to shoot a live action adaptation of Lord of the Rings and got turned down. It was known as an unfilmable book until Peter Jackson took it up and gave us the version that we all know now. It was also done in an animated version that I think is on our list. Actually, I'm looking forward to getting to that down the road a bit. Yeah. But by none other than the guy that gave us Fritz the Cat. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, so he went on to go right after this. He goes and shoots Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which is known as one of the worst films of all time. Everyone hates that movie, including Billy Friedkin and the author of the novel. And then he goes on to shoot Excalibur, which is kind of an acid trip take on Arthurian legend. So, yeah, this guy was kind of a trippy dude. Irish guy, lives in Ireland. And then Sean Connery signs up just to kind of regurgitate his career. He has some clause in his contract at this point that says that he cannot be kicked off set for lack of a better term, and I'm really summarizing here, paraphrasing, but sexually harassing the talent. And asking for retakes when there's nudity involved and so forth. Sean Connery's horny at this point. And I will also add, so are his co-stars, who were excited about being naked with Sean Connery, who's known as James Bond and one of the sexiest people of all time at this point. So this was a horny movie. Total drug trip over in Ireland. They used a lot of locals from the surrounding town as extras. Crazy.
Yeah, man. So let's get back to the film here. When he awakens inside that head, there's all these people that are sort of wrapped in like some sort of plastic, like they're action figures or something from the Matrix or something, right? And then Zardoz, who is actually this guy. What was his name? Do you remember his name?
His character's name?
Yeah, the Zardoz guy.
Arthur.
There you go. Arthur Frey, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he comes out. Zed, who is Sean Connery's character, jumps out by surprise and shoots him. And then that's basically enough to smote this guy who's supposed to be like a god or something. And he sort of flies out of his mouth. He's like, why did you do this? I could have shown you everything. But like, he also seemed pretty okay. And, so he ends up flying out, and the head lands later on the lush green hillside, like we're talking about, with all of the different fog and everything like that. And, he's sort of walking around and he sees this house. It's like a sort of like a farm type house, right? And we do get some cool set design right there, sort of like funky tubes that are kind of going all around. There's like these vibrant blue walls, and then there's these sort of like flour mill things or something. I wasn't 100% sure what they were. Who knows if they did either. But he walks through the house. He finds this like shrine to Zardoz that has this sort of music box. Within that is a ring that ends up projecting this report of Arthur Zardoz, talking about the sort of like a produce report, like which of these different vortexes and areas have surpluses and scarcities of various supplies. So, but that was kind of the first and last that we explore that to any sort of degree. And I think that is ultimately what ended up drawing me out of the film the longer it goes on, because they keep introducing these ideas and these concepts that are ultimately pretty cool in and of themselves, you know, but nothing ever goes anywhere. It's like, okay, cool, we do this thing and that's out of the way, and now we move on to this thing. So it's constantly introducing these concepts without really exploring them at the end of the day. And then the ones that they do, you know, weren't really the concepts that I found interesting. So,
like what concepts were they introducing that they weren't following up on? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so for example, there's that whole thing, right, where it's like, oh, okay, you know, it's going to set up some sort of conflict with supplies, and maybe he's going to have to, like, grab supplies from this vortex and take them to this vortex to save these guys, but there's going to be some, like, space pirates or something or whatever, right? Like, could be something like that, but it just, you know, there's ultimately no reason for that to happen. It doesn't really go anywhere with that. There's a lot of stuff about... what would be a good thing? So, like, a little bit later when he ends up going to the hippie commune, the whole thing with, like, the green bread, for example, you know, like why is the bread green? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, they just sort of put it out there. And then the whole nature of, like, the apathetics, you know, these people that are sort of just disengaged and they're lifeless zombies and they don't really have sex. Like, outside of just setting up that final moment where he supposedly, quote unquote, liberates them, like, why are they that way? Like, what do they have to do with anything around the story? Right. And then the whole scene with, like, the what is it? Like the guy that freaks out with the cult, where they're trying to get him to, like, ascend to the second level or whatever, which I have a clip I'll play later, and he's like, no, second level. No, don't do it, blah, 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 I won't go to second level. It's like, what is second level? Who is this guy? What the hell is going on to any degree of anything? I understand nothing about this scene. So there was just a lot of things that will come up over the course of our discussion where it was just like, again, like, that could have been something interesting if I knew what the hell it was about and how it was connected to anything else. So that's what I mean to answer your question.
You're not wrong. I was just curious. Yeah, I think the whole thing with the supplies and the ring was really just to start dropping breadcrumbs that there was more to what, like, you know, obviously we're going to talk about this, and I'm not going to jump too far down the rabbit hole here, but yeah, his class of people were being used to get supplies for the utopian class of people. So you have, like, the dystopian and the utopian, and this group of Eternals that have learned how to live forever are using these bandits to cultivate supplies and get them what they need, and to not procreate. They can control their population and all of that. So the ring was just saying, you know, basically a status report letting us know, like, there's something going on here, that these people are being used or whatever. Anyways, yeah, that was my takeaway from it. But yeah, you're not wrong. They give you a lot in this movie to unpack, and it's just a lot of packing peanuts, and then you get down to the bottom, and it was like this big old refrigerator box with packing peanuts with, like, this tiny little thing inside. It's like, man, that was a lot of packing supplies for just this one little thing.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, from there, so he ends up going outside and he sees this naked chick on a horse. And of course, being Sean Connery and exhibiting the behaviors you just mentioned, he follows her, and he follows her to another half naked chick, which I'm going to call Orange Headdress for the most of this program, because for the longest time I did not know her name. I just knew the chick with the orange headdress shows up, and she has some sort of thing to play in here because she's got a lot of scenes, but never really quite understood how she fit into the larger piece of everything.
I think her name is May. And then, so you have May, you've got Arthur Frayne / Zardoz, and you've got Consuela and Zed. Those are, like, our big four. And then there's the friend. They just call friend. There's no name for him. Those are really our main characters, and that's it. Everyone else is an extra / one of John Boorman's neighbors that he hired to come in and do it.
And from there, we also are introduced to one of the locations that we're going to go to time and time again, which is the Tabernacle. And that's this big, well, it's not big, but it's a crystal room with a bunch of mirrors and what look to be sort of like frozen dead bodies in the walls. And this is basically the room that they use to explore Zed's mind and project his thoughts and memories, etc., onto this screen that they can watch. And the idea is that he's this brutal, quote unquote, right? You kind of spoke to this earlier, where there's the dystopia and the utopia. So there's the brutals that live in the dystopia, and there's the, elevated class, if you will, that lives in the utopia. And they're kind of that traditional sort of hippie society. And as you mentioned, they basically have renounced sexuality of any sort. And so when he shows up, they're like, oh, we can use this to study the human erection because we've never actually understood the relationship between thoughts and, she tries to sort of postulate that there's a sort of violent element to what stimulates man. I do actually have a clip of that as well. It's where she's presenting him with all this information and convincing the rest of the people to accept him. So let's listen to that clip real quick.
Penic erection was one of the many unsolved evolutionary mysteries surrounding sexuality. Every society had an elaborate subculture devoted to erotic stimulation, but nobody could quite determine how this becomes this. Of course, we all know the physical process involved, but not the link between stimulus and response. There seems to be a correlation with violence, with fear. Many hanged men died with an erection. You are all more or less aware of our intensive researches into this subject. Sexuality declined, probably because we no longer needed to procreate. Eternals soon discovered that erection was impossible to achieve. And we are no longer victims of this violent, convulsive act, which so debased women and betrayed men.
So she makes her case, and eventually everyone agrees to let him stay. From there, we sort of get these shots of him walking around. Like I said, we've got this sort of green bread stuff. And then there's another thing that they introduce and just sort of go away, which is the notion of like punishment through aging, where if it kind of reminded me of the Lobster actually a little bit in reverse, in the Lobster, how they could like add days before they got turned into an animal by hunting. This was like the opposite of that, where if you do something bad, we're going to age you, and that's the only way that you can age is through sort of punishment, so to speak. So as long as you're on your best behavior, you pretty much more or less get to live, forever, or as close to it as you can. So
that's an interesting take with the Lobster. I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right. This is kind of almost exactly like the opposite of that.
Yeah, and then like I said, we're introduced to these apathetics, which is this group of people that are sort of zombies and don't engage in any sort of sexual activity. By the way, Ryan, can we acknowledge how plausible and long-term of a business model is creating a civilization where death is encouraged and procreation is not?
What do you mean?
I mean, it just seems like, okay, so the whole thing is how they're like teaching this group of people that, procreation is evil. That's why the penis is evil, because it spews seeds, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, death is liberation, da, da, da. So like, I don't know. It just seems weird. Like, you're literally going to run a society and discourage procreation and encourage death. And somehow we've made it to 2293 without the race going extinct. Seems weird to me.
Well, they could live. So the Eternals, hence the name, have found a way to live forever. So they no longer need to procreate. The whole thing is about resources. So they have limited resources, and with more mouths to feed, with everyone living forever, they had to kind of shut off the valve. For lack of a better term, that's kind of a direct. That's not even a metaphor. So and then same with the savages that they have working for them, i.e. Zed/Sean Connery, all his homies, they got to keep them in check from procreating because they'll use all their own resources and there'll be none to give to the Eternals because they have them all working for them. So
that's what I'm saying.
To shut off the valve and get rid of procreation. Hence, the penis is evil because there was only so many resources left on Earth after whatever happened to get them here. Does that answer your question?
Okay, yeah, it does. But so here's the thing. I mean, so the Zardoz group of people, which would be, again, we'll call them the utopia, is manipulating the dystopia, right? Like, that's the thing, is the dystopia is one
supplies,
vortex.
so they could have a utopia and not have to work and just live in paradise.
Correct, yeah. So what I'm saying is, for literally hundreds of years, these brutals have been lorded over and convinced not to procreate and to kill everyone. So how are they still a race? I understand on the utopia they live forever, but they're not the ones that are being instructed to go forth and kill. It's the dystopian brutals that are being instructed by the utopia.
Right. So the ones that they're killing, that we see Sean Connery hunting down, that they're giving guns for, they're hunting people that haven't bought into this, that are still procreating. So there are savages out there that are still procreating, and they're all the Eternals are trying to do. And this was all Arthur Frayn's idea. He's like, let's arm them, some of them, and train them to hunt down the procreators to try to thin that out and control it and wean it back. In the same way that someone from Wisconsin might go shoot deer. You know they're gonna be back. They're gonna make more deer, but you want to thin it out. Otherwise, you're gonna have an overpopulation of deer. So you need to thin the herd a little bit, and that's, I think, what they're trying to do is let's arm them, let them thin themselves out, police themselves, and hopefully through that they'll be so caught up amongst policing themselves and worshiping the god and killing themselves and being scared of each other that they won't worry about us. So. That was kind of my take on it. And then in doing so, over time, the Eternals, taking this conversation back to where you were, have lost sexual desire or understanding of sexual behaviors because they've spent so long not procreating so as not to exhaust their resources, that all of a sudden now here comes Sean Connery with his sexy ass, and they're like, oh man, his dick works. Literally, that's what a big chunk of this movie is about. May decides she's going to keep him as a pet so that they could study the secrets of erection, sexual arousal, and how that, if they can still somehow salvage that side of humanity, but yet nix the whole procreation, exhausting our resources part. So she was like, well, his dick still works. So let's, see what we could do to get him turned on and study this and what makes that work, and maybe we could apply that to some of our men or women and still ramp this up because they're all bored as shit without sexual attraction. So that was my take on it.
Yeah,
and there's a big chunk of this movie of them just various sects, SECTS, of these utopian population that are for minutes at a time, just trying to turn Sean Connery on in various ways to get him to cop a boner so they could see what that's all about. It's such a weird movie. And to your point,
really
this is like the most 70s shit. This is like, Burt Reynolds was up for this role, and I almost would have rather seen Burt Reynolds.
He would have crushed that as well.
Yeah, dude. He would have rocked this role.
Oh, yeah. Which, by the way, and for anybody listening that hasn't seen this movie, don't think that the movie is going to go into anywhere near as much depth as Ryan just went into, okay? This movie it puts all that out there for you to figure out on your own after the movie when you have a podcast to record and need to fill an hour.
I took a deep dive into Sean Connery's boner habits to bring this info to you guys. So please don't follow me. Do not go down the rabbit hole. I took this on myself. I did this to myself.
So Ryan, getting back to the film, you're right. They're kind of studying him as this pet, and then. Again, I want you to explain this scene because he's kind of walking around, he's sleeping in a cage, they're studying him, blah, 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 going to the tabernacle, looking at his thoughts, and then all of a sudden there's this luncheon, and there's this group, and they psychically attack this blonde dude who's absolutely refusing to go to the second level, and I don't understand what's going on. So you guys listen to this and tell me if you know any better than I do.
The monster is a mirror, and when we look at him, we look into our own hidden faces. Meditate on this at second level.
No. I will not go to second level. No. No. I will not go to second level with you. I will... No! I will not be one mind with you. I know what May wants with that. No! Does it no? The vortex is an obscenity. I know. I hate all women. Birth, fertility, superstition.
Friend is beyond redemption.
No. Renegade.
Renegade. Friend is renegade.
He must be cast out. He is no longer one with us.
Renegade. Cast him out. No!
All right, buddy, you're the one who did the deep dive. Let's hear it. What the hell's going on?
So that's Friend, right? And he's arguing to whether or not to keep Sean Connery and all of that, and they're revolting. Is this where we're at in the film?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Friend has taken a shine somewhere to Sean Connery. He's kind of taken Sean Connery and made him his slave, where May wants to extrapolate sexual information. Friend is kind of taking him on this tour. Sean Connery's, bringing him around in a little rickshaw around town. Friend's kind of introducing him to the different groups amongst the utopia. Some are like mindless drones. Some are the aged, called renegades, that they have been punished so many times that years have been stacked against them. And when they get so old, they just shove them in this like ballroom to go.
Okay, so that's the elderly mob, so to speak.
Correct.
That he runs into a little bit later. Okay.
Yep. Those are the aged people that have been punished so much. So that, they end up going down there and teaming up with them later. And Friend actually gets punished enough to where he gets sent there himself. It was just an argument of science. May wanted to keep him for himself. Consuelo wanted to get rid of him altogether and said, this guy's trouble. That's May's friend amongst the Eternals. And then Friend, I know this is getting confusing. I'm sorry. The
I was going to say, I'm possibly more confused than I was before I asked you the question.
Yeah. So everyone watch a piece of Sean Connery for different reasons. This is what we're getting at. And some of the Eternals decided to team up against this blonde dude and say, we need to get him out of there. He's, rousing up Sean Connery for the wrong reasons. And he's telling him too much and letting too much out of the bag. And he gets punished for various crimes and sent to the renegades in the ballroom and aged accordingly due to that. I think second level, if I recall, was just an instant, fuck you, you're old now, you go with the renegades. Whereas everybody else would get like a year or two punishment here or there, and it would like slowly get to you, but you're still like good to go for a bit. Second level, I think, was fuck you, you're out of the cool kids club. And you have to go hang out, with the old folks. And so he did.
So why did they, so right after that too, they also come to a sort of determination that they're going to give Zed 7 days before they kill him. Why was that? Why did they decide to kill him?
He was just an experiment, he was fodder, and he was never meant to be amongst the Eternals, because he's not one. He's a caveman as far as they're concerned, that they brought in to study, and eventually they're going to get rid of him. That was always May's concept, is Consuela wanted to get rid of him right away, and May was like, well, she's orange headdress woman, was like, well, hold on. Let's see what his boner's like. Let's see his dick first, and we'll go from there. So we could study his sexual prowess because his penis still works. Though it is evil, it still shoots seeds. So they wanted to study him, but I think the plan was always to nix him. And Consuela, a green headdress woman, decides enough's enough at this dinner. You guys have had your fun. Zed is, because they're letting him roam free and stuff too. It's kind of like, this guy's going to be trouble. I could already sniff it out. And they give her more or less, they take a vote and they're like, you have a week. So you got a week to get this dude an erection that you could, study and figure out what's going on and bring us some info. And if you can't prove his value within a week, we're going to kill him and just get rid of this and go back to our utopia, because this is disrupting our perfect society. And perfect example, this blonde dude to my left, who we need to have a talking to, and they do, and then they all do like some weird chant, some om kind of meditation mantra thing, and they will him to the second level, to the next level, where he gets thrown in with the renegades and gets aged. Yeah, there you go. Am I close there? Does that clear things up?
I believe it does. I believe that's the most clarity I've ever had on this movie in the 3 times that I've seen it.
I have studied for this movie more than I have studied for anything in my entire life. So I hope you're really appreciating these.
No, dude, this is fantastic, man, because it's awesome, man. This worked out perfectly because I came to this episode with nothing but questions, and here all you have are the answers. So, I mean,
I have nothing but answers.
This is podcast gold, sir. This is exactly what this was meant for.
So around this time, Sean Connery's realizing he's in over his head, and, he has some homies that were back on the Mankini horseback parade, back on amongst the bandits, where he was originally when they were getting the guns and stuff. And they come over the hill and they see him, but there's like an invisible wall that is separating the utopia from some of the other areas of the world, namely the bandits that are kind of keeping them safe, the Eternals from the dystopian people. So we see at this point Sean Connery do some of the best mime work I've seen in quite some time, where he's up against this invisible wall that obviously wasn't there. And I just love watching Sean Connery, go nuts on the mime work. That was pretty solid.
Absolutely. Well, and then, shortly after that too, we get like the big reveal of Zardoz, and this is another thing that I'm going to ask you about. So he basically sort of flashes back to, he's back in his home vortex, and he finds this library. And within this library, it turns out that he taught himself how to read. And in doing so, it really wasn't that long until he stumbled across this book called The Wizard of Oz. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But that's when he learns that record scratch, that was more of a car screech, but either way, you know what I'm getting at. Zardoz is just a combination of the last 4 letters of Wizard and Oz jammed together. And this proceeds to wreck Sean Connery, okay? He just loses his shit, goes crazy. No, everything's a lie, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Ryan, my question to you, what the fuck does any of that have to do with anything, and why do I care?
Right. Yeah. No, I think you were most accurate with the car screech, because I wanted to get out at this point. I was pissed. Stop the fucking car. I'm getting out. Like a pissed wife on Christmas Eve. You stop the fucking car, Harold. I'm getting out here. I told you enough. I was pretty upset about what.
It's just the title of the movie. It doesn't have to do with anything.
They do a big buildup, too. Like, they show that scene actually several times, because he's, like, slowly getting his memories back on how he ended up there. That's the whole thing we didn't talk about, too, is, like, this movie opens very confusingly with him waking up in the head and shooting Arthur Frayne and / Zardoz, and him flying out and all of that. By the way, when he flies out of the mouth of the head after being shot, Arthur Frayne / Zardoz, that had a very Wicked Witch of the West in the tornado vibe to it as well. And so much as he kind of hung there and kind of looked in and I'll get you my pretties and that sort of thing. So it felt very much like that. But yeah, as he slowly,
and I'm sure that was intentional.
Absolutely. As he's slowly getting his memories back, he keeps remembering going to this library, being led there by this trickster of sorts, kind of a Loki type, kind of giggling and bringing him along. He would read books. He was taught to read and taught to understand and comprehend. Over this time, we find out all these things leading up to, I believe that was leading up to him waking up and all of that in the head. So that all happened as a prelude that we're now kind of dribbled that information throughout the film as he regained some of these memories. And then we find out that one of the books, that the culmination, the book that he was supposed to be shown was The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And yeah, I was pretty mad at this point at that reveal. Still on board, but just I don't know, whatever. Well, we'll just give him a mulligan on that.
Yeah, it was a weird trick to hang your hat on cinematically. But regardless, from there we come back, and then I don't even know. Again, maybe you can fill in some gaps here, but like shortly thereafter, he comes back and he's sort of like walking around, and then he like ends up getting put in this sort of protective bubble, so to speak, and it's supposed to be this like indestructible bubble, right? And like the big sort of resist Spartacus moment is that he's able to tear through the invisible bubble, which seems to
which is really just an inflatable Christmas snow globe that you'd buy at Walmart for $29.95. Like that's all he was in, was like a Christmas snow globe inflatable.
It's basically the bubble from Bubble Boy that he walks around in. It didn't seem particularly robust, but regardless, it's enough to completely change and transform the, apathetics and, who become, I guess, amorous, ready to bang because, wow, this guy's power, he, pierced the impenetrable shipping plastic. They like almost have an orgy, but then they don't. And then Zed runs away and he runs again into the, that elderly mob, the Eternals, like you talk about. And then all of a sudden, Ryan, he's in a wedding dress? Whoa,
yeah, so
what was that?
Here's the thing. So I'm going to...
Anytime anybody starts something with, here's the thing, it's great. And they're digging way up their ass to pull something out. So just strap in and let's hear Ryan.
I can't believe I'm giving my NYU college dissertation on Zardoz, 1974, but here we go. So Wizard of Oz, my take on that, to answer you a little more succinctly, was that that's the whole pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The floating head we have in the beginning was kind of like the Wizard of Oz floating head. In so much as like the Wizard of Oz in the film, the wizard, the actual wizard, not the doctor that was playing him with all the levers and stuff behind the curtain, but the image of that was all a facade, and it was meant to rule over the Munchkins and the land of Oz to keep peace, because ultimately, as long as an oversourcing power was around, everyone else would stay in line. But also, it removes free will. That's always kind of the sacrifice, right? So whenever you have a fascist government or some kind of overarching ruler, you're going to have to surrender some of your democracy of sorts. And so I think that the Wizard of Oz novel was just a metaphor. Like Arthur Frayne was trying to show that, and he created that. By the way, Arthur Frayne created that whole thing about Zardoz. That was his idea to the Eternals. Like, so we got these cavemen over on the coast that we can rule over and have them work for us. We'll teach them to farm. We'll teach them to get us supplies, and then we don't have to do it. Then all we have to do is just chill. And that got boring for them. So I think Arthur Frayne decided he was going to topple this Jenga tower and this whole House of Cards thing and push it over and show Zed, Sean Connery, the man behind the curtain, hence The Wizard of Oz, and show him the book and say, look, this is where I got the idea. This is what's up. This is what we're doing. and it's all a fucking ruse. And I'm sorry, but now we can use you as this revolutionary type to team up with the renegades, with all the people that are upset with what the ruling class of the Eternals, the snobby fucks, have been doing against your people, against their own people, and so on and so forth. So then they decide they need to sneak him over to the renegades to go meet with Friend. Friend was the one ally that Zed had at this time. They kind of had like befriended each other, so to speak. So they had to sneak him in to that ballroom where now Friend is living because they took him to second level. So they had to dress him up in like a gown or whatnot, like an old woman's gown, to try to not raise any eyebrows as they sneak him into that ballroom, to get him over with Friend and say, look, and Arthur Frayne and all of that. And they kind of get their little band of merry men together so that they can start a revolution, knock down the wall, and take down the utopian society. Yeah? Did I nail it? No?
I believe you nailed it, sir.
All right.
Consider it secured.
Connery had a
big
old problem cross-dressing, by the way. He was not down to clown in a bridesmaid's dress. John Boorman he had an uphill battle to sell that one. What the fuck, John?
That's a good Sean Connery there, Ryan. You should be commended, sure. So the other thing that we soon realize from there is that the tabernacle that this whole thing, most of the story takes place in, this mirror room with this crystal room where they go and project his thoughts. It was created by the Eternals and by all the people. And basically what they decided to do is just shun their entire knowledge of death. And that's sort of how they became immortal, because basically this thing of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but it's like if we're not aware of death, then we can't die because we essentially like don't know that we're supposed to, but then now they're trapped and they can't die. Was that kind of the idea behind it?
So I think the idea behind it, we're about an hour and 10 into this film, and I'm thinking that John Boorman is assuming that your LSD is kicking in right about now, and he doesn't give a fuck about story anymore. It just goes off the rails, and you have psychedelic imagery, you've got crystals, new age imagery and metaphors. There's old people fighting young people, and topless people, and mindless people that can't speak, that are like mindless zombies of sorts that now have regained the a desire to have sex and procreate and are all over Sean Connery, and he's all about it. Then you got May that's horny as fuck that wants to bang him under a sheet after showing him the secrets of the world. I don't know, man. There's a lot to unpack in the last like 45 minutes. They're in a wax museum for a little while. There's some
really
time
weird.
travel elements that go back and forth where he's like out of time. Where he's able to learn all the secrets of the world outside of the constructs of time, as long as he's inside this crystal thing. Dude, I don't know, man.
And I think that was part of it, is that the crystal was really the sort of impetus for all of this sort of advanced knowledge, etc. Because we're basically taught that like all of these people have pieces of this crystal that end up getting like inserted surgically like into the fronts of their brain, and so that's what sort of gives them these psychic powers and this sort of heightened sense of awareness.
I think that isn't that what gives them the eternal life too? That's what slowed down their life. I think was the crystal, and the crystal is a sentient concept too. It's a sentient being. It talks and communicates with Sean Connery and others. And they're able to communicate with each other this way as well. It almost sounds like a mixture of Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey and Kit from Knight Rider, where he's just like constantly checking in a whiny way. And then eventually we find out he reveals himself to Sean Connery outside of time. And he's like, I'm right in your hand the whole time, blah, blah, blah. And Sean Connery's like, oh, fuck me. And, moves on. So.
Yeah, well, and the whole thing, becomes resolved when he basically, to your point, he has to sort of go into the crystal, like you said, outside of the sort of construct of time and space. And it's this sort of, very trippy 1970s, it's almost done like a fun house with mirrors. And there's just a lot of atmospheric sound effects and synth tones. And I believe it's sort of like he ends up shooting some sort of personification of his own self that's wearing the mask, which probably some sort of metaphor for like destroying the old brutal him that, lives back in the dystopian vortex. And, and then he's basically able to sort of like reverse time with his mind, and then like all these people sort of follow him. And, it's shortly thereafter that, finally there's this like old man who's on his deathbed and he's able to die. And, the stone crashes to the ground, and it's finally like, oh, okay, through the results of this man's liberation campaign, we can finally die. Peace can be achieved, which, yay, we can finally die. Hooray.
Yeah, the curse of the eternal, because a lot of these Eternals found that to live forever actually was more of a curse than a blessing.
Sure.
So I think that was the moral lesson that the movie proposed, or the quandary to the viewer is, do you really want to live forever if you could, or is the ticking clock of man, what keeps us going and allows us to be the best versions of ourselves? Do we lose all our fun? And all of that by living forever, and the sacrifices that would need to be made and met to make that happen. I also have in my notes that that whole crystal scene with Sean Connery as he's going through that. He's in the crystal and he sees all the mirrors and stuff like that. He ends up shooting one. That was the lamest version of the ending of Enter the Dragon that I've ever seen. So Enter the Dragon came out a year before this in 1973 with Bruce Lee. So I almost wonder if John Boorman didn't swipe that. I don't know. Because it seemed awfully close. We've seen it several times since then, the Mirror Funhouse deal, but which one's the real me? Ooh, spooky.
And from there, we get the this new sort of cult that like worships mortality. Zed's Dane the Liberator, but it's then that what I'll refer to as the army of the mankini, which is really what they should have been called the entire time. They arrive and they finally, shoot and kill this entire hippie cult and all these sort of old people and Eternals and blah, blah, blah. And so everybody's able to get that sweet, sweet taste of death finally. And then, of course, we get that nice, seemingly sort of random last sequence of Zed and Consuela having a kid and sitting there and getting old, and we get this sort of time lapse sort of thing.
I didn't get that Consuela all of a sudden was down to clown with Sean Connery.
Yeah, right.
She was like trying to get rid of him the whole time, and then all of a sudden she's like, "I will be your maiden." I'm like, "You? No, you hate this dude. Like, what are you doing here? Get out!"
Right? Yeah. Go figure. An unmotivated decision in this movie. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah. Yeah, so Sean Connery hooks up with her. They actually procreate. The penis is no longer evil. He shoots some seeds, and then they go live in a cave and go to restart humanity, I guess, in that weird time-lapse scene of a cross-dissolve to various ages of Connery, Consuela, and the kid as they slowly age in the cave. There's like some cave paintings in there as well to kind of allude that mankind was starting over. And then all of a sudden, it ends on two skeletons wearing their costumes from the film. And that, I got to tell you, man, that skeleton Connery hit a little different. This viewing of this movie, that was it was like too soon, bro. Even though it was a film, it's like, man, that's.
Totally, man. Totally. So yeah, dude, I mean, that's Zardoz, and it's definitely unto itself. And so, Ryan, let's hear your 3 adjectives, dude.
Psychedelic, man. This was, like I said, Sid and Marty Krofft, 1970s gold. Mwah. Nonsense. This movie made no sense. I did the best I could to summarize it for you and to deep dive and bring you some answers, but I think for the casual viewer, if you just watch this and don't have a laptop next to you to take notes, good luck. Just enjoy the psychedelic imagery. And it was just kind of a slog. Like it would, I don't know, man. It was really hard to keep, like, I'm telling you, I said at the beginning, I both love and hate this movie. This was a tough one to wrap my head around. So it was just the best I could come up with was just a slog. Like, it was hard to get through. I was kind of, until I found out these answers that I'm bringing to you right now, these hard-hitting answers to these great questions, then they're just throwing a bunch of shit at you with a guy with a pencil drawn on mustache and all that. And if you're into some silly shit and you don't mind going on a little sci-fi romp in Ireland, great. But if you're looking for some sense to be made by this, without doing the research that I just jumped on the grenade for the audience, good luck. And I just kind of felt like that was a disservice. In fact, to further prove my point, the floating head shit at the beginning of the film, the studio made him tack that on because they were like, what the fuck is this? What did you bring us? Like, didn't you just make Deliverance? Like, that was cool. Like, we won awards for that. And then now this, like, uh-oh. And a lot of the footage was missing because of the ruined, techniques they used. And so they're like, dude, you got to slap on an intro or something. And so we did that floating head shit. And, yeah, and it still didn't help. I don't know. I got nothing.
That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, I mean, we got some pretty similar adjectives here. So my first one is trippy, which is really just a synonym for psychedelic. And yeah, as we talked about the entire episode, it's pure 70s. It's coming at you hard. It's tripped out sound effects. It's tripped out visuals. It's just a bunch of
second level, baby,
psychedelic nonsense. For me, the film was also incredibly unfocused, like I had alluded to earlier. Just didn't really know. I know that you broke down a lot of this stuff for us, but like I said, the film plays like a coke-addled version of everything you just said, right? Like, some guy's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna introduce this, and blah blah blah. But it's like you really just forgot to connect the dots for the audience all along the way. So it just moves from one thing to the next, and is constantly introducing these concepts that are not explored within the course of the film. You want to go ahead and, like you said, do a deep dive afterwards and go back and fill in a lot of these gaps, because that's what you're gonna have to do. The gaps are going to be there, guys. The gaps are there for the people who've seen it, and you're going to have to fill them in after the fact. So definitely an unfocused film. And then memorably unmemorable. Now, Ryan, this is a film.
I love that so much.
Like I talked to you about, like, there was so much that I remembered about this film in terms of especially the opening sequences with, the wizard guy and the stone head and everything. But, like, it was also a film where I had to go back through my notes to jog a lot of this. It was like a couple days after watching it, and I was just like, I don't remember anything about that film. And I've seen it 3 times, and I continue to not remember anything about this film. And I think it speaks to its sort of random elements and the unfocused nature of the production, or at least the way the story is told, where there's nothing to hang your hat on. It's like, you know what it is, dude? It's a series of Family Guy cutaways, okay?
Yes.
Mashed together into a movie. And you know how, like, if you try to remember what Family Guy cutaway goes to what episode, you can't really do it because it's not tied to the plot. So you can't be like, oh yeah, that joke is that part when Peter does this or Lois or blah, blah, blah. It's just randomly inserted there. So there's nothing else for you to hang your hat on or hang any sort of connection to the story. So that like, I remember certain visuals, like you're talking about the mankini on Connery and, his excellent pantomime skills and all these different sort of things. But like, if you had asked me, the day after I saw the movie, like, what happened, I'd be like, he walks around a hippie encampment. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, I hope I've done my part to make this movie a little more memorable for you. I've given you something to hang your hat on.
Oh, yeah. If nothing else, you made this podcast episode a lot more memorable. That's for sure.
Fair.
So, yeah. So, all right, man. So let's go ahead and formalize this bad boy. Grade rating for Mr. Ryan Siebold on Zardoz. Go.
This is going to be a tough one here because I'm telling you, man, this is 2 movies for me. This is a movie that I both love and hate. This is a piece of trash movie that I ended up kind of like, it's a cult favorite. You know, it's one of those movies that I'm glad that I've seen, that I could reference in cocktail parties, that I could say, yeah, I've seen that. That's bananas. If it ever comes up in conversation or jokes get made. But it's not a good movie at all. And I would not recommend this to anybody. So as such, with an asterisk, I'm going to give this a D+.
Wow. Generous. Okay.
Oh, generous? You
B+.
think that? Okay. Yeah. No, D+.
You said B+, right? Like boy?
No, D like Sean Connery's dick.
Oh, D. D+.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That actually seems a little harsh.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, wow. That's really crazy. I honestly,
this is a D+ movie that I like. Yeah, this is a D+ movie that I like.
Huh.
So,
interesting.
Take that for what it is.
So, yeah, no. Okay, so there was, what are we at? Like a little over an hour on this episode. There was no part of the previous hour and change that I thought that I was going to have a higher rating than you did. I felt like I was a lot more critical about this film, but apparently not, because I'm giving it 3 out of 5, dude, because I didn't hate it. Yeah, no, it's like you said, I there were aspects of it I loved. I loved the sound design. I loved just the overall vibe. I loved the approach that it took, just the batshit crazy nature of everything. And like, I wouldn't, like, oftentimes when I'm giving these ratings, I kind of think like, how excited or pissed off would I be if I had to watch this movie again, right? And I kind of use that to guide me. And like, even after doing all this, I'm like, I probably would watch it one more time, like down the road. Like, I don't need to see it anytime soon and get to the bottom and piece together everything that you put together. But like, I would probably still watch it one more time in another 5, 7, 10 years. So I can't. So if I'm willing to walk through, so if I'm willing to sit through this movie again, I can't say it's bad, and anything less than 3 star or like a C on your scale is bad. So it wouldn't be fair to go that low as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, it is, because let me flip the script on you. I appreciate that you ask yourself, how mad would I be if I had to sit through this movie again? And that governs your ratings. But you could also say, this podcast is for the people, for the listeners, and how mad would they be if they took your rating and applied it to having to sit through this movie, even a first time. So there's that. Yeah. Also, you get hammered, drunk on a idle Friday night, you're going to stop by McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, go get a grease bomb of a burger. You're not going to give that burger a higher rating. Will you go back next time you're hammered and want a grease bomb burger? Yeah, probably, but it's still a D+ experience. I mean, this movie's a D+ gut grease bomb burger of a movie. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody. Certainly not my friends, but I will admit that I've watched it, and secretly I enjoyed it. So that's
so. Ryan, do you think that it's fair to say that this movie is the Sonic of movies, the Sonic burger of movies?
No, I hate Sonic Burger. Sonic gets a true to life F. Yeah, there's something about that place, man. It all tastes like weird vanilla flavoring. I can't explain it. Their fries and tots are just shit.
Oh no, dude! I really love their tater tots with that sort of crap topping. Yeah, no, they're really good, and we don't even have any out here. They're only like on the way, like if you head north, like to Baker, or to Las Vegas or something like that. Like on the way to Vegas, there's tons of Sonics, and yeah, every time we stop there, it's always like, I am loving this experience while also recognizing that this is shit food that's possibly only half a step above poison that I'm putting in my body. But regardless, I really enjoy it, and we're going to make this stop every damn time.
All right. I mean, well, then there you go. It's the Sonic Burger of fucking movies. Zardoz, 1974, by John Boorman. I don't know what to tell you.
Excellent. Well, hey, guys, that has been Zardoz. Had a lot of fun talking with you about this one, Ryan. It's a batshit crazy film. I think that we did a pretty good job of representing the movie, so... for the people that have already seen it, you know what you're getting into. If anybody out there hasn't, I feel like you know what you're getting into. So, I don't know. I'm going to call this mission accomplished, Ryan.
I hope I cleared some of the confusion up. It's really just about Sean Connery's boner. That's really what we're getting at. hour and 44 minutes of that, and then, you know, the repercussions of chasing it. You know, it's kind of the holy grail of boners. So you don't want to drink from that golden cup. It brings repercussions that you're not ready for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hey, guys, just a quick note here. We do want to remind you that we love talking to you. We love hearing from you. So please don't be shy about reaching out. Got a few different ways. Of course, we have a lovely Instagram with a lot of really cool choice artwork and quotes from the show. That's a lot of fun. Make sure to follow us there. We're on the Twitter at Esoterica Cinema. You can hit us up. You can talk about anything that you like or dislike that we talked about on the show. Of course, you are limited to your 288 characters there. If you're the type that doesn't like to be limited to characters, you can also send us good old-fashioned emails where you can just rant your head off about how great we are or how much we suck or how great that muffin you're enjoying right this very moment is. All that's on the table and more. That's esotericacinema@gmail.com. And then also, we really would appreciate it if you give us the subscriptions. So if you listen to this on Spotify, go ahead and give us the follow. If you listen to this on Apple, please do subscribe. We would really love your support there. And just as a reminder, our next episode is going to be a really interesting one. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. And the two films that we are going to be looking at and discussing on our full episode are Bowfinger and Dagon. So really, really interesting films there. Couldn't be more different, at least seemingly. We'll find out. So thanks so much for joining us. Hope you had a great time today. We will see you on the next episode of Esoterica Cinema. My big meeting is tomorrow and I've been tossing and turning all night. I've tried melatonin and other medications and nothing seems to work.
Life in the fast lane is rough. If your busy mind and daily stress is keeping you from the rest you need, try Zardoz. Zardoz is proven to help you sleep through the night and is fast-acting, so say goodbye to all those countless hours of restless nighttime behavior.
Huh. Just 2 little pills were apparently all I needed this whole time. Thanks, Zardoz.
Zardoz is a narcotic, so talk to your healthcare provider before use. Clinical studies show Zardoz help patients sleep up to 10 hours with 1 dose. Zardoz includes small doses of chloroform, so talk to your doctor before use.
This is incredible. I'm so tired already. That was really fast acting. Wait, did you say chloroform?
Side effects may include irregular heart rhythms, lucid dreams, headache, drowsiness, and shortness of breath. Some patients reported erectile stiffness caused by graphic dreams. These effects may be made worse with alcohol use.
I can barely keep my eyes open.
Ask your doctor if Zardoz is right for you, and get the full night's sleep you deserve.
Is he sleeping?
Yep, I think he's out cold.
May I see his boner now?
Yeah, $50, just like we agreed.
Okay then, here you go. Now let me just take a peekity-peek here.
Huh? What the? What's going on?
Oh shit! Hand me the rag. Hand me that rag. There you go. There you go, buddy. Breathe deep. Breathe deep. More Zardoz for you. Sleep well, sweet prince. Now get his pants. Get his pants. Zardoz is only approved in Syria, Venezuela, and certain parts of Rio de Janeiro.
From the visionary minds at Aberrant Literature comes a short fiction collection unlike any other. Aberrant Tales, bursting at the seams with stories of creativity, excitement, and wonder. Aberrant Tales takes the very best in modern science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and weaves them into one thrilling, eclectic package. Featuring the works of Ashton Macaulay, M.T. Roberts, Daniel Kurland, and Jason Peters. Aberrant Tales is available today in ebook, hardcover, and paperback versions, online and everywhere books are sold. Published by Aberrant Literature.